Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for picking on me today, Glenn. Last time you tried to pick on me, I got saved by the bell. The speaker showed up, so no such luck today. But it's been a while since I've shared on Zoom or gone into a treatment center. I do love going into the local treatment center where I got sober, where I got my detox. So to qualify real quick, I looked it up while everybody was doing days. My sobriety date's 12/28/07. That's 5,619 days. And uh, I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. I do attend, 3 to 4 meetings weekly. I have 2 home groups, and I hold various service positions and do service work in both home groups because that's what we do in AA, as I've been taught by the old timers. My intro that I like to steal and borrow sometimes, I steal from one of my favorite speakers, women in sobriety. She's on the West Coast. Some of you may know her, but she starts out with, "I'd like to thank or welcome all the newcomers and welcome all the, I call it repeat offenders. We've been praying for you. And I also like to give thanks to the old timers that are here with us still and those that have passed over to the big meeting in the sky. I just lost one yesterday here in Phoenix. I don't know how many years Mr. Ducky had, but he will be missed. I met him when I was brand new in this program, and I'm thankful that the Lord has taken him because he's out of this pain. He was a Vietnam vet that had a lot of physical issues because of the time that he served in Vietnam. So I'd also like to thank any veterans that are here on the Zoom call today. Thank you for your service. So the quick story of Carlelle is I'm a Kansas City native. I'm a pretty loyal Kansas City Chiefs fan. I moved away from Kansas City, but I did not leave my loyalty for my Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. And there's 3 constants that I like to tell people when you grow up and are born and raised in the Kansas City area. The 3 constants are: 1, Budweiser, and 2 is Chiefs, and 3 is barbecue. So I'm also a barbecue snob, and every time I get back to Kansas City, I make sure I taste some of the local fare. So I was born and raised there. My mom and dad split when I was about 2, and they had another child, and so I have a brother that we didn't grow up together. We grew up in different homes for various reasons, and he still lives in Missouri, and he also suffers from the disease of alcoholism. I do have kind of vivid remembers of driving around in the car and mom going, "Here, hold my beer." That's what kind of went on back in the 60s. Drinking and driving, I wasn't really, punished that often as the stories that I've heard. They kind of gave you a slap on the wrist and let you go home if there wasn't anything serious going on. But I also have been told stories that I was, as a young girl, taken to various drinking parties and stuff where there was alcohol, and I liked to sample all the drinks that were left unattended on the table. And when my mother came back home, she was living with her mother at the time, and when we would come back home together, and the little one was a little inebriated, that didn't settle too well with my grandmother. So about 9, 10 years old, there was some other legal things going on with my mom and her mom, and that's when legal action was taken, and I was pretty much forcibly, against my mother's will, removed from her as primary custody. And I became a ward of the court, and I lived with my grandmother from then until my 18th birthday, until I became a legal adult. And I decided it would be a good idea to go down to the University of Missouri. And I had a great time there. I had a great peer group in high school. I was a fairly good student. I wasn't magna cum laude or anything, but it was a great place to go to school and learn and grow up. And we had a great community there. And I like to call myself back then a good Catholic girl doing bad things, trying not to get caught. I kind of flipped that around now. I'm a not so good Catholic girl doing good things, trying not to get caught, doing random acts of kindness, and just me and God and the next person know that happened is a much better way to live than doing the bad things and asking God to, look the other way, keep me out of trouble one more time. One of the things I liked to do when I was young was borrow automobiles that didn't belong to me, that I wasn't insured to drive. And when I got to the program, I heard that you're a liar, cheat, and a thief. And I didn't take too kindly to that because I didn't consider myself a liar, a cheat, or a thief. But when I mentioned the opportunities I had to borrow these vehicles without permission of the owners, it was quickly pointed out to me by members of Alcoholics Anonymous that I was a thief. I was a car thief. Even though I took the car back, I did not have permission to take that car, and I was, driving a stolen car. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So my alcoholism quickly became apparent to others when I was probably exiting college and making the move to Phoenix back in 1985-ish, 1986-ish. And even though I was, living with my dad and trying to get established out here, things, I didn't want to get kicked out of my dad's house for bad behavior. But I had family down here too. I had family my age. I had cousins, and we like to go out to the desert and have desert parties. That's where I learned to ride a motorcycle. I learned to ride motorcycle on dirt in the desert out here, and I have a motorcycle license, and I'm without a motorcycle right now, but it's one of the great joys that sobriety has brought back to me. Riding a motorcycle again and not having to just ride on dirt, and I can ride on the streets legal, get insurance, and have a lot of fun. So one of my home groups is primarily sober bikers. If you're ever in Phoenix, Arizona, look up in the meeting guide for Cut Sober. We have 3 meetings a week. We have a meeting on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And if you like to ride, we do a lot of fun things. And so come on out and join us. So after I moved to Phoenix and I got a job and my girlfriend came out, and we were young and pretty, and we had money, we were employable, and we liked to drink and party. And by the grace of God, I don't know how I managed to navigate those years, those early years, early 90s, all the way through 2000 without getting a DUI is totally by the grace of God. When I was doing an intake at the hospital, one of the questions that they asked was, how many, DUIs or, driving infractions do you have because of alcohol or, drinking or other substances? And I looked at the gal and I said, how many? And she's like, yeah. And questions, how many? I go, well, I said, can I say zero? She says, you can say anything you want. And I go, well, zero. And I said, and that question is improperly worded. This is how arrogant and how intelligent I thought I was. And I was 2 times the legal limit when I was doing intake, as I was informed later that I told the gal that was doing intake that the question was worded wrong because how many implied a positive answer and zero wasn't a positive number. So that's why I wanted to know if I could say zero. She looked at me very confused, and I still don't know why I thought that was important to bring to her attention. So if I didn't have a lot of consequences, is the point I'm trying to get to here from my drinking. I found a good enabler, and we were together about 15, 16 years before he decided to say, tap out, I'm out of here. And I can't, he couldn't live with an alcoholic in the throes of the disease anymore. He went through probably the absolute worst years of my active using, and so he suffered some consequences as well as me, and that relationship was really, really fractured because of my love of alcohol. He did ask me one point in time that question I think that a lot of us get from loved ones or friends. How come you can't stop? Why don't you just stop? Because I overshot the mark just about every time we went out to a dinner party, we were invited to family functions, work functions. It was always kind of, well, is Carlelle gonna, drink like a normal person tonight, or is she gonna, get drunk? And invariably, Carlelle was not able to control her drinking, and Carlelle ended up drunk and having to be driven home, and sometimes embarrassed myself and others along the way. So when it was time for the disease to be addressed, the elephant in the room had to be talked to and talked about and dealt with. It came down to another man had entered my life. I thought he was going to be a good drinking partner, but just like alcohol, he kind of turned on me. I was a good drinking partner for a while, and then about 90 days into it, I wasn't that good of a drinking partner anymore. So he made me a deal one day. It was around Christmas because my sobriety date's 12/28. So it was right before Christmas. We done some things around Thanksgiving, and drinking was definitely out of control. Drinking was a number one priority for me, and this fellow could see that. He had just enough education with the 12-step program and the disease of alcoholism, I think addiction, that he never shared with me. And he told me that I was a pretty good gal, except when I was drinking. And I said, well, when is that? When I'm asleep? Well, I wasn't sleeping. I was passed out. And he said, more or less, yes. And have you ever thought about getting some help for your drinking problem? There is help out there. I didn't want to hear this. I didn't, I wanted someone who enabled me, would drink with me. I didn't want anybody to confront me about how much I drank and tell me that I was a pretty good gal, except when I was drinking. It's nothing I wanted to hear. So there were some other words exchanged that night, and they weren't nice. And I said a lot of things that I should not have said to that man. But I did call the number on the back of my insurance card as he suggested, and I found a place to go. And he came back on 12/27 at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when he got off work, and he took me to the hospital about 5 miles down the road. And it's the same hospital where my son was born. And every time I go by that hospital, I remember those life-changing moments that happened to me at that hospital. One, the birth of my son, and two, the hospital that I walked into at about 4 o'clock on 12/27 and of '07, and I haven't had an opportunity or a reason or an excuse to take a drink of alcohol since then. It's been a rough road along the way. Sometimes it hasn't all been woo woo, and life throws you curveballs. And this program has taught me how to deal with those not so lovely opportunities in life. I got sober right about the recession, 2008, and there were a lot of people losing their homes. And on my fear list that I did, I remember 2 things from that fear list. Well, 3 things. One was being homeless, 2 was losing my job, and 3 was losing custody of my child. And none of those have happened. And thank you, God. And I owe it all to good sponsorship, fellowship, doing the program that of Alcoholics Anonymous that's outlined in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, going through the book with another person, a human being, in a group setting, on a one-to-one setting. I go to meetings that are book-based. My women's meeting is a big book based meeting. So my nose, my eyeballs are always in and on this book. And it is a not so great piece of literature, but it has saved many, many lives. It has saved mine. My relationship with my first enabler, my son's father, has been restored. And in fact, I just got off the phone with him not too long ago. And he lost his father when I was down there visiting last year. And I just wanted to check in on him and see how he was doing. And a few years ago, or basically early in sobriety, mid sobriety, I could have cared less about that man's feelings or how he was doing. And that has drastically changed by working the steps with the sponsor and wanting to change. I'm definitely not the woman that I was when I came into this program. And if I don't continue to work with others and stay vigil, I think is the word I want to use, about enhancing my spiritual condition, the big book tells me I will drink again. And this disease is acute, chronic, and fatal. And I have a lot of proof of that. In the meetings I go to, people come in, they leave, they come back, some don't come back, and we hear about some of the collateral damage. The ones, oh, did you hear about so and so? He or she was found in a hotel room last weekend, or word travels when bad things happen to those that don't come back in and stay. When we circle up out here, A lot of us, like, when we've done saying the Lord's Prayer, we like to say, keep coming back. It works if you work it. But others are wanting to say, please stay. Because if you don't stick in the middle and stay, you find all kinds of excuses or opportunities to take a drink. We've had some old timers, 20, 30 years pick up drinks during COVID and had trouble getting back in because they were, couldn't go to meetings in person. Zoom just wasn't cutting it for them. And it's terrible news to hear that people with big sobriety numbers like that go back out. And I pray for them. We want them to come back in and stay. And I think Bob and Bill would be really proud of the Zoom platform and what a lot of us have found during this global pandemic. I know I really jumped on Zoom, and I needed it when things were shut down. I think I would have survived without it, but it sure made the week and the days go by a lot easier, knowing I could get on the platform and go to a meeting anywhere in the United States, in the world, any day, any moment. And it was a game changer for a lot of people, and it was a lifesaver for a lot of people. So I'm going to end my time here at half past the hour, and I'm going to pass the baton to Carol. But what I always like to share, because a lady when I was new always shared this. It's on page 276 in my book. It's in the stories, and it's one of the original women of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done a little research, and the story is Keys to the Kingdom. And the final 3 paragraphs is what I like to read, and then I will be done. And I usually have a hard time getting through this without crying, so wish me luck. All right. Page 276, Keys to the Kingdom. The last 15 years of my life have been rich and meaningful. I've had my share of problems, heartaches, and disappointments, because that is life. But I also have known a great deal of joy and peace. That is the handmaiden of an inner freedom. I have a wealth of friends, and with my AA friends, an unusual quality of fellowship. For to these people I am truly related. First, through mutual pain and despair, and later through the mutual objectives and newfound faith and hope. And as the years go by, working together, sharing our experiences with another, and also sharing a mutual trust and understanding and love. Without strings, without obligation, we acquire relationships that are unique and priceless. There is no more aloneness, with that awful ache so deep in the heart of every alcoholic that nothing before could ever reach it. That ache is gone and never need return again. Now, there is a sense of belonging, of being wanted and needed and loved. In return for a bottle and a hangover, we've been given the keys to the kingdom. And that, to me, sums up this. It always has summed up this experience for me. And that was written by a woman decades ago who is no longer with us. And I can totally relate to everything that she put in that story. And I'm so glad it's in the big book, because I love sharing it with others. Happy to share my experience, strength, and hope with you today. And I'm going to pass to Carol. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlelle.
Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Carol, and I'm really honored and grateful to be here. And thanks, Carlelle and Glenn. And I was given the gift of sobriety on May 1st, 1988 at the Glass House Group in Fort Worth, Texas. So about 2 weeks, a couple of days ago, I celebrated 35 years of continuous sobriety. And you know what I learned? Life still happens sober. And I love the story Keys to the Kingdom. And a little before where she read, it talks about this program allows for limitless expansion, and I'm never going to outgrow it. And a little farther down, it says, where I used to run from responsibility, I find myself attacking things with surprising vigor, because I used to always run from life and not want to face it. And I don't get to do that today because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps and the traditions and the concepts. And another story I love is it might have been worse, because it says I didn't have to go to jail and get a DUI and lose jobs, because none of that happened to me either. But what I learned is when I put alcohol in my body, I have no control over what's going to happen and what I'm going to do. And I did drink for that effect, and I did change what I drank because, you know, I got thrown up sick or went in a blackout drinking one thing, and so I'll never do that again. It must have been that. And what I learned is it doesn't matter what I drank. If I put that alcohol in my body, it's going to happen. But in part of the story, it might have been worse, which I love. It said, I didn't know what was expected of me in AA, but whatever it was, the most important thing in life for me, sobriety meant more to me than anything in this world. It was so important, it must come ahead of anything. And it says, I like to read my book out loud in the singular. So it says, doing my best, living each day to the fullest is the art of living. Yesterday is gone, and I don't know whether I'll be here tomorrow. If I do a good job of living today, and if tomorrow comes for me, then the chances are I will do a good job when it arrives. So why worry about it? AA is a way of life. It is the way I should have always tried to live. And now I have a new way to live. And I don't know if I'll have tomorrow yet. I just have right this minute. You taught me all I have is right now. I don't have to worry. And I heard somebody a while ago, and they said, God's the answer. What's the question? See, if I trust this higher power, then I don't get to worry. I used to always worry about things and what's going to happen and how am I going to do this. And you know what I learned? A lot of what I thought about or worried about never usually happened. And if it did happen, it did not happen the way I thought it would or when I thought it would. So then I was suffering in advance and using all this energy foolishly, like step 11 in my Alcoholics Anonymous book teaches me. It says, I'll use energy foolishly. And it gives me instructions. And I've done Glenn's spiritual roadmap that he's doing soon. And it's great. And basically, it's the same things my first sponsor, Lois, taught me to do. You know, read the big book and find a higher power and read the 3rd and 7th step. And then she had me read page 68 to 71 and ask God to help me set my ideals in every area of my life. And then she had me read 84 to 88, which is steps 10 and 11, because they give me my instructions on how to live. And they tell me what to do when I don't know what I want to do or what I should do or what action to take. And that's where, when she had me set my ideals, that helped me a lot, because she said, Carol, if you know what your ideals are and you know how you want to live and the principles you want to live by, then when these things happen and I have to make a decision, then I can kind of talk to a sponsor in my support group. But a lot of times she taught me to rely on prayer and God in my Alcoholics Anonymous book and say, are these in accordance with the principles and the way I want to live? And then the Alcoholics Anonymous book, those pages 68 to 71, she said they apply in all areas of my life, not just sex. But she said, read the book and it says, are my motives good? And am I going to hurt other people? And it tells me if I do certain things a certain way, then I might drink over them. But if I don't do that, then I can stay sober through anything. And I've been sober through having cancer and body-altering surgery and the death of a husband and spouses. And I've also stayed sober for wonderful events like international conventions. And last fall, I traveled in my camper van. I got to meet Glenn and Jane and stay in their driveway for a few days. And I got to have amazing experiences and celebrate, weddings with people and all that, and didn't even think to drink through any of it. No, life happens whether I'm sober or not. Yes, so, if we go to sobriety countdowns, we see after 5 years and 10 years, there's drop-offs, and there's not a lot. Because I love online meetings, I would have never met any of you, including some of my sponsors around the world. I would have never met them except we have online meetings and I love them. And so what I've learned is life happens, and I'm going through things now. And what I've learned is I don't go through them, I grow through them. See, my higher power that I found through Alcoholics Anonymous keeps showing me how big God is. And I found for me, what works for me is I don't invite God into my small, limited human day any. I used to do that because I used to hear you say you invited God into your day. And then one day I realized I don't want to invite God into my small, limited human day because my best thinking got me to you, and that wasn't good. And I don't know answers, and I can't see the future. But I invite myself into God's day because God sees the future. At least mine does. And mine is gender neutral, and mine can change the weather in a heartbeat. And mine sees what's coming and what I need to know, and connects me with people sometimes, and I don't know why, and then some lesson or experience happens down the road, and I can connect to people because God put that in my path. And I love the picture I put behind me because I took it from a helicopter a few years ago. And it reminds me when I look at that picture that, you know what, it's from a higher perspective. Houses, people, trees, they're just little specks. And in the background, all those buildings in the distance are in a haze. See, God knows what's coming. God knew someday, Carol, you're going to get to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you're going to need a lot of lessons and experiences to get you to feel so bad about yourself that you are willing to do anything, Carol. And that these other people are going to have experiences too, and they're going to help you and share theirs with you. So, Carol, you know you didn't do anything different than anybody else. And you're going to help save other people's lives like they're going to save yours, Carol. See, I ask God for strength, and God gives me difficulties to overcome to make me stronger. And my higher power gives me what I call pop quizzes. Carol, what do you know, and how are you applying it here? Because, see, God knew that I needed 16 years for Alcoholics Anonymous seed to be planted in me before I got to you, to be willing to do whatever you asked me to. Once I came here, I didn't go back out. Nobody's ever said it's better, and somebody stopped me when I wanted to go out with 2 weeks sober because that emotional pain hit. But I went in that meeting, and the lady sat, and we talked, and we cried, and we shared those secrets I thought I would never tell. And they told me I'm not a bad person trying to get good. I'm a sick person trying to get well. And life happens. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've got a lot of things happening in my life now. I've had a lot of surgery. I've had complications. I deal with chronic pain internally on a daily basis. But now, you know what's happening, I'm going to share with you because my sponsors told me that if my story doesn't change, I'm not changing. And that I need to tell you what's happening in my life currently and how I use the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to deal with life on life's terms. Now, the other day, I started getting dizzy. I went to the doctor. I found out I have some form of vertigo. So everything I do, I have to move more slowly. But now my landlady wants to sell my apartment. And I wasn't supposed to be here a year because I wasn't supposed to be alive. April was 10 years ago. My doctor told me I wouldn't live much longer. So I had sold everything. I gave my apartment away. I sold my apartment. I gave everything away. I made my funeral arrangements, and I was living in my camper van. And guess what? My friend that has this apartment I'm in now for 10 years came to visit me for Memorial Day in 2013. Now, this is how my God works, and this is what I'm going to share with you. Several times I've had to move, and every time God put the right thing there at the exact right moment. And that's happened for many things in my life. Now, when she came, I was living in my camper van. I was in really bad health. I wasn't supposed to live much longer. And I'm living in an RV park close by. And she comes down, and guess what happened the weekend she came to visit? The person renting this apartment moved out. And Vanette, my friend, says, would you like to rent it? I said, sure. That's great, because my doctor wanted to be in hospice. And so it worked out. We did all the paperwork while she was here. I took her to the airport Tuesday morning. It got approved. I moved in Thursday. I needed a bed. She said, get a hospital bed. my friend said, look on Craigslist. So I did. I found somebody about an hour away that had one for a good price. He said, for $50, I'll deliver it. I said, okay. The day I moved in on Thursday, the bed was delivered. I didn't have to worry about anything. God took care of it. When I lived in Fort Worth, somebody offered me a job 3 hours away. I went, I talked to a realtor, said, I'll be down in 2 weeks, and this is what I'm looking for, an apartment, maybe 2 bedrooms with a garage, maybe a fenced-in yard. He said, we're not going to have anything like that. We haven't in a long time. It's a military town. You're not going to get that. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, I go down to the realtor, and the first thing he says is, we had an opening this morning for a 2-bedroom apartment in a duplex with a garage and a fenced-in yard. And I said, let's go look at it. And it was great. And I said, but let's see what else you have. And I ended up taking that apartment. And then I went to look for where there's an AA meeting. Guess what? The house is 2 houses from a corner. When I made a right and went up 1 block, there was a church, and that's where the AA meeting was. See, where God guides, God provides. And then we had a railroad track splitting the town, and I found out on the other side of the railroad track there was another AA meeting a couple miles away, and I went. But there wasn't an Al-Anon meeting, and I'm also a member of that for 35 years, so I started an Al-Anon Alateen meeting, and I got to have 5 Alateens to sponsor. How cool is that, right? And then the guy gave me this apartment. Now, see, she wants to sell this apartment. I don't want to buy it. But I got a lot of stuff again, so I'm finding places to donate it. And I'm not worried about where I'm going to have to live. I've been doing footwork for 2 months, saying, because I knew she was coming. And God, bless it or block it, God, let me know the truth, what you want me to do. And I looked at places and I made phone calls and all this, and it didn't feel right. And God was blocking some of the paths for it. And I said, okay, I'm just going to let it go because I don't need to make a decision today. So I said, okay, God, I'm giving this to you. And let's see what you do with it. So now my part is giving stuff away again because I don't know what's going to happen. I may be able to stay here and maybe have a rent increase or whatever. And I was hoping in May to get away in my camper van, and then I thought maybe June. Well, maybe God's saying, Carol, right now you don't need to go anywhere. Just stay where you're at, Carol. It's okay to just be where you're at. So I'm not concerned about where God's going to have me go because I have lots of options, and I'm looking at different options of what I want to do. And so today I just stay right where I'm at. And when I have to go places and decide, you know, even with meetings, there's so many meetings I love at the same time. And sometimes people I sponsor or friends of mine are all sharing at the same time. And you know what I did once? I had my laptop on and my phone on 2 different meetings. And what I learned is I can't concentrate on either one if I'm trying to do 2 at the same time. So when I have to make decisions and I have choices, what I do is, Carol, where are you going to keep your mind and your body in the same place? Because I've tried having my mind in one place and my body in another place, and it doesn't work very well. I did that years ago when I lived in Texas. I was moving somewhere, and it was July 4th, and somebody invited me to another state to go watch fireworks. And I said, but I have a lot of packing to do. I really shouldn't go. And they talked me into going to Arkansas to watch the fireworks. So my body is in Arkansas not paying attention to fireworks because my mind was in Texas thinking of all the things I should be doing and packing. So when I have to figure it out, where can I be present in this moment? And you know what I learned too is I keep hearing things differently, even seeing things differently in my Alcoholics Anonymous book. And I read it out loud in the singular. And the reason I do that is because when I read it out loud, my mind doesn't wander. I focus on what I'm reading and I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it. Because if I read silently, my mind wanders and I can read something and not remember a thing I read. But when I read it out loud, I hear it. And those phrases kind of pop into my mind. Just like when we read how it works at meetings, right? Especially when I was new. Because when I got sober in '88, and I got sober in a generation we didn't have Google and cell phones. We had payphones and answering machines, and we used dictionaries, and we had cassette tapes, which Glenn made a lot of, and that's what we did. I didn't have instant access to call a sponsor or somebody in a support group. So when I had to make that decision, I carried a little pocket big book. We have those too. But sometimes I would say, what did I hear somebody share that I can apply here? Or what has my sponsor told me? Or what did I read? Or sometimes I would hear somebody that read how it works at a meeting, and it said the result was nil until I let go absolutely. Or I stood at a turning point. I would hear phrases, or maybe I'd hear the phrase in step 11 that Lois had me read in the morning and at night and sometime during the day, every day for every day. I still do it. And it says, pause when agitated or doubtful, ask for a right thought or action. So you give me these instructions, and I get to be still sometimes and just say, okay, God, it's because what I know is if I'm not ready for whatever it is and God doesn't have it ready for me yet, God's not going to put it together. Sometimes God waits to the last minute. Even recently, my insurance for my apartment, they passed some new law with this insurance company, and I have to get flood insurance, and I'm on the second floor of an apartment. And guess what? It's about $320. And as I'm cleaning out my apartment, because I volunteered at the Balloon Fiesta for 6 years, I have this whole bag of pins that I don't want, and I called somebody to give them away, and she said, we'll give you $1 a pin. And I had 310 pins. So God gave me the extra money to pay the extra insurance that I don't think is necessary, but evidently some company wants the money. And I have a lot of experiences like that. See, where God guides, God provides. And God gives me the pop quizzes, Carol. What do you know, and how are you applying it here? And are you trusting am I trusting my higher power? You know, I heard somebody once, they said God knew how I was going to turn out when God created me, and God went ahead with it anyway. And Lois gave me lots of prayers, and I still use them. And some of them are, Carol, ask God, if it be God's will, can you please not do things to hurt yourself anymore? Ask God to let you see people and situations as God does, Carol. Do things for God, Carol, so you can't get resentful. And work the steps. I've learned I can work the steps through anything. And they work. I'm powerless over anything or anybody, and I choose to not let it make my life unmanageable. And I gave God that decision. It's not a promise like I used to make promises. I decided to give God my will in my life, however God wants us to go. And then I share things, and then I get to step 5 and 6, and I just say, God, take all of me, give me back what you want me to have, because my hang-ups are usually my way. You know, when we read how it works, we stop at the ABCs, but right after that is being convinced I'm at step 3, and what does that mean? I'm the actor. I want to set the stage. I want to set the play. I want to do all the arrangements. If it goes my way, I act kind and all that, and if it doesn't, how do I act? See, I've learned I gave up my script writing. God has the script, and my God has a big eraser. And some days God says, okay, like I came into this meeting and I didn't know I was going to be sharing. But what I know is God gave me a lot of things to walk through lately, so I get to share them with you and tell you how I'm doing them. And I'm doing them 1 minute at a time sometimes. Some days I just get to sit and breathe and be kind to myself, because I wasn't very kind to myself when I was drinking and doing things that weren't kind to me and weren't nice to you. So I'm so grateful that I have this new way to live, that you gave me a book of instructions called Alcoholics Anonymous, and that you gave me steps and traditions and concepts that I apply to my life, because they're all important. The traditions you told me apply to my life and my relationships, and you know what? They keep my life simple. I get to be one person, unity, tradition one. I don't have to be different people for different people anymore. I just get to be who I am right this minute. And tradition says I have no opinion on outside issues, keeps my life a lot more simple and then not in conflict with others. So I apply all those. And one of the concept 5 says the minority voice is as strong as the majority voice, because I used to not speak up. I used to have this plaque and it said, it is better to remain silent, be thought a fool, than to speak up and remove all doubt. And what I've learned is by speaking up, sometimes I listen to you, because minority votes and minority voices sometimes can change the whole vote of a meeting, where maybe you share something and it makes me think, you know what, maybe I need to rethink how I think about that issue. I'm grateful to be here, Glenn. Thank you for all your service. Thank you for letting me share. And I'm honored to be